All right. It says we're live. I'm going to wait till it shows up on this screen. Hey, everybody. If you're joining, thanks for being here. Give me a second because I just am super paranoid of it not actually going live. It usually takes like 10 seconds. What's that?
I know that feeling where you're just like,
yeah, we'll have an hour discussion and then it's like, oh, we never started the stream. All right, give me a sec. It still hasn't shown up on the side. That's why I'm always super paranoid, because it's very possible that I'm doing something wrong. In fact, let me go over here. Let me go to my live.
No, I see us.
You see us live?
Yep.
Oh, there we are. See, this is why I can't trust technology, because this whole time I thought it wasn't going to work. Hey, everybody. This is Benjamin Rogojan. If you don't know who he is, because this is on my YouTube channel, but if you don't know who Ben is, he's better known as Seattle Data Guy on YouTube. I have all of his information down below in the description. Go check him out. Fantastic data engineering content. Really, really good stuff. I've learned stuff from your channel. I don't know if you knew this, but I watch your stuff. Especially back, this is like 2 years ago. I was really interested in some data engineering stuff, and I watched it, and I learned a lot. So if you want to be smart, like me, you just go watch his channel. This is going to be super chill. We are just going to be chatting about some data topics. The conversation is going to go any which way. This kind of just happened naturally. We just got on calls every so often and we're chatting. And every time after the chat, we were like, man, that was a good conversation. We should do that where other people can listen, because it's, we just chat about random stuff. And so I threw up some random topics that we had just kind of thought about doing in the thumbnail. But honestly, it could be, we could talk about anything. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to go.
Yes.
Did you want to say hi to everybody before we get going?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for having me on the show, Alex. I appreciate it. I'm excited to chat. We'll kind of see where this goes.
I like how you said the show. This is like the lowest budget show of all time.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone kind of calls, like when I do my lives, they're like, "Oh, it's like a podcast or something." I'm like, "Well, it's just a chat." Like I don't have. I should probably convert everything into some sort of audio form so that more people can listen. But it really is just a chat. So
yeah, people have been bugging me to do that for a long time too, and I have zero drive or motivation to do so.
If anyone wants a good startup idea, that would be amazing. If you could just if I could click a button and create all my stuff into podcasts, and then it automatically has like intro and outro music, and then just uses AI to do a little intro.
That's got to be out there somewhere. Someone's done that. If anyone knows what that is, someone's done that. I see people in the chat coming in. Hey, everybody. This isn't going to be crazy. So normally during my live streams, I'm pretty interactive with the chat. There may be times if we want to chat with the chat, or I might, I like reading the chat, but this is going to be more just like me and you chatting, I'm guessing. So, hey, everybody in the chat, thanks for joining. I see you guys. People from all over the world. Bangladesh. I want to go to Bangladesh. Sounds awesome. So, direction of our live stream or this chat is really just data things. What did I put in the thumbnail?
But work-life balance, I think, is first, and then career progression, and then data engineering versus data analytics.
Yeah, that's a good one. The reason I put work-life balance is because we literally were just chatting about this the other day about when we were just on a call, is how crazy our lives have gotten. Just as things progress and as we start our own businesses and do YouTube and all sorts of things. And you, of course, I probably have had more things change recently than I have, because you got all sorts of things going on. So, yeah, I would say that we both have different experiences when it comes to work-life balance. But I'm curious to know more about, because I think I talked more than you did just because I had so many kids. I talked more than you did. So I actually still need to know more about how you do it all, because I know you do a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'll always be impressed with you because, again, you have I think 3 kids or something of that range.
3. We could have. We might have another. We might not. It just depends. We'll see. But it could be 4.
Yeah. Now, when you say that, do you mean you might have a fourth and you just don't remember if you have a fourth, or do you mean like you just do some?
No. We have 3 currently. We might have another. We're not sure yet.
Yeah.
I didn't lose one, I promise.
Yeah, no, I think for me, work-life balance has been a little bit easier. Like you said, I recently got married, so that's it adds new things to it, where you just have another person that you care about and want to do things with. Because before it was just like, oh, do I want to stay up until midnight to do work? Sure, like why not, right? And then now it's a little different, where it's like, well, someone might not enjoy that if I do that every night. Like maybe I can get away with that occasionally, but you gotta you have someone else that you want to spend time with and do things with, and work's not the only thing. I think that's the other thing, is I've recently really tried to force myself to try to think about other things than work, even when like I'm talking to people, where it's like I'm trying to avoid the first question being, what do you do?
Right.
I feel like I don't know if it's an American thing or just a world thing.
It is an American thing, but that's pretty common around the world. It's like, what do you do? Who are you and what do you do? That's like the first thing people ask.
Yeah. So trying to like talk about other things, obviously picking up new hobbies outside of it, but some of that's also because I think I have a house now. So it's like, oh, suddenly I feel a little more settled, so I can be like, I'm going to grow tomatoes, and that's really fun. Don't get me wrong, I like doing data stuff, but it's also really fun to see the work of your hands actually produce something. And my wife is currently sick of tomatoes, because I didn't realize that like 4 tomato plants would produce so many tomatoes.
You have to see, the great thing about having a garden though, and because we have a big garden at our house, is that it forces you to get to know your neighbors, because you start having so many tomatoes, for example, that you're like, I just need to give this to anyone. Like, I'm gonna go knock on my neighbor's door and give them tomatoes. And we've met a lot of our neighbors that way, because other people in our neighborhood garden. And so it is a isolated thing when you're doing it, but then once you get the fruits, it becomes a very social thing.
Yeah. So I think I've always been trying to find new things. And in terms of like actual work-life balance, I've gotten better over the years. I think when I was younger, I was really bad. Like it was like work was the only thing, especially like first jobs I had was like working in fine dining. And so those are just time consuming jobs, because you're working from like noon till midnight, if not later. And then I've never, like for a long time, I never had just one job. I worked at one restaurant, and then one of the chefs grew microgreens in their garage, which are just like fancy little things you garnish things with. And so I would like deliver them for him, like before I started like my actual job, like 2 or 3 times a week. Or I remember there was actually some days I worked more than 24 hours, because I would like work one restaurant for like working pastry, and then I'd go to the next one, maybe sleep 40 minutes in my car, and then go to another one.
Great work-life balance.
Yeah, and work until like 4 a.m. And just it was long days. But and then when I eventually got working in tech, I started working one job, but then I somehow started consulting. So then now I'm like, okay, I work 40 hours and then add in another like 20. Eventually started writing a lot as well, and do YouTube, and suddenly you're like, okay, how am I doing like 68 hours a week again?
Yeah, you're like, I was trying not to do this, and then it just creeps back in on you.
Every time it's like this interesting like creep that comes back, and then like I think I ebb and flow. Like I'll like get really crazy. Like before I quit Facebook, I like got to this point where I was like sleeping 4 hours a night, and I just would like, I got sick. Like I would just get sick because you're just like not sleeping. And definitely took a lot of effort for me to learn, like I need to chill occasionally. You can only work so long. You only like working so long, and eventually nothing gets done anyways. You're just like not doing anything.
Do you feel like you work less now that you're married, or do you work the same as before?
I think I'm trying to think. Let's see. I probably work about the same, maybe a little less, which is good, right? Like my wife helps me occasionally unwind and do other things. It's one of those things where sometimes I still do it initially begrudgingly. Like I'll like be like, oh, we got to go do this like fun event, and like, but I have all this work to do. I know, right? Like, oh man, that's so terrible. And then you go do it, and you're like, that was great. Like, and now I actually feel better and feel more rested and feel more capable. Whereas if you just try to pound that extra 2-4 hours of work, like maybe you get nowhere anyways. So
yeah, that is fair. I think after I wasn't in anything tech related until I got married, and so I don't really have a before and after. My work life balance before I was married was like I'd go to work, I'd come home, I'd get Wendy's on the way home, and I'd go to the gym, and then I'd play video games and watch YouTube.
nice.
Like it was like the most relaxing classic right out of college schedule you've ever seen. But now, I got 3 kids and 2 dogs and 2 cats, but some of which are trying to get in right now. And so my schedule is like, it has not ever gotten less than when I first got married. It's only increased. And so I recently posted on LinkedIn about my schedule, and a few people were like, well, Alex, do you have time for hobbies? Do you have time for working out? Do you have time for these things? I was like, yeah, I do. I have time for those things. I was like, I just don't do them as often. So like my typical day, and this is almost every single, like this is today, but almost every single day, I get up at 6:30. I make my kids breakfast. I make my kids lunches for the day. I empty the dishwasher, let the dogs out. Like that's my part. My wife does other things. And then the kids go off to school at 7:30. And now I work. So like I'll be working until, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'll work until about 3 o'clock. And then that's a solid 8 hours, right? Let me see. How many hours is that? Is my math wrong?
Wait, are you saying from 10 or when did you start? 10 or
no, like 7. I usually start at like 7 to 7:30, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So it's 7. That's 5 hours plus 3. It's about 8 hours.
About 8 hours.
So I usually do about 8 hours in the morning. And then my kids come home and we have dinner and we go to the pool and we play in the backyard and play, board games and whatnot until about 8, until everyone's in bed. And I work from like 8 to 11:30. So I do about 11 hours-ish on average during the workday, during the weekday. But I still have like 5 hours, 6 hours with my family. So like I feel like I have a pretty good work-life balance. The kicker with all of that is I work from home.
Yeah. Yes.
And I have a wife who takes my kids to school and picks them up from school. So like I have a small advantage in the fact that I don't have to commute anywhere. I just do my morning stuff and walk upstairs, and here I am in my office and I can work. And so it's a lot of people lose a lot of time going to the office, and that's not something I miss. I hated going into the office. It was like, especially when I lived out in Dallas, it was horrible. And I lived up in Plano for a long time. And Plano, the drive into downtown Dallas where I worked was like, 45 minutes to get there, but then like an hour 15 to get home. So that's 2 hours every single day where I can't work.
Yeah.
So that's my current schedule. And I've been doing that for about 4 years. Yeah. So I've been doing that for a long time.
And I think the big thing for you is like you clearly stay focused. I think to some degree, like to me, it's like based on output, you clearly have like a goal. I think that's the biggest thing is like it helps to have like clear things you want to get done.
That's true.
I'm trying to get to this point where like I really just try to get myself to like focus on maybe like 1 to 2 big things that I want to get done in a day, and then almost giving yourself not the rest of the day off, but like the rest of the day to breathe. Because I think sometimes if you like don't have a clear goal for the day, you will finish maybe 2 big things, but you will feel like you still need to get more done. And then you'll do nothing for like 2 hours because you're like, I need to do more. And somehow you just end up either clicking through tabs or doing nothing for those few hours. I like that you brought up the commute. Yes, you do. Okay, good. We're all a little human.
Absolutely.
Yes. The commute thing really hits because I remember my first job when I worked as like a data analyst at a healthcare company. I was in like, I want to say I was either living in Edmonds in Washington, and I was driving down to Renton, which is across Seattle. So you have to get past downtown and it's another 20 minutes. So yeah, like anytime you got to go past anyone's downtown, it's a nightmare. So it could easily be like an hour and some one way, an hour and some the other way. And so, in a week you'd be putting just 10 plus hours just driving, and you're just like, I am not enjoying myself. And when I worked for Facebook, I remember like I specifically found a place that was 1 mile away because I'm like, I just want to be so close that like I don't have to like deal with that.
Yeah.
And they had a bus, but I just would drive in because I'm just like, it's just so nice to be so close.
So you were a data analyst, then you transitioned to data engineering, and I never made that leap myself. I stayed in data analytics.
Yeah.
Why'd you change to data engineering?
Yeah.
Was it just cooler? Like all the cool kids were doing it?
No. At the time, I think everyone wanted to be a data scientist. I think I wanted to do. Well, I know I wanted to be more of a data scientist initially. Like I had in college, started learning programming. Eventually, took an epidemiology course, and like part of me is like, how do I kind of start mixing this stuff together? I think I eventually found an article about. Data science, probably the Harvard article. And I was like, okay, let's like try this. So I started taking like, yeah. So I started doing like bioinformatics courses and some other courses that were like really focused on some combination of data science, right? Like there was no clear data science route that back then. There was no master's in data science. So yeah, I just kind of try to push myself into that direction. And even when I worked my first job, like I was really like, I always kind of pushed to be like, hey, like there's a data science team that you just started. Can I like figure out like, do they need someone? Can I help? Can I do anything there? Like I'll, what can I do? So I got to like do some small projects with them as well. And I think I just found that I like liked building things that are more solid-ish. And I think that's what a lot of people will tell you is like, they like building, something that's more permanent than like often just an analysis. Yeah.
Right.
Which, a lot of people that I've talked to that are on the data science side, depending where, tend to do more of analysis that never ends and keeps going and keeps going. And so that I kind of fell into it. I remember when the first time I got a data engineering role, I wasn't even trying. I was just like, I don't know what job I have, like what skills I have, or I know what skills I have. I don't know what job I should do. So I was just putting in the skills in Indeed. I'm like, I have SQL, I have, Python, Java. I've got these skills. Like, what does that mean?
Right.
And so eventually I kind of found that, data engineer exists. Okay, let's try that. So.
Yeah, back in the day, we couldn't just ask ChatGPT, what should I do with my life? Which now just go do that. Just say, hey, what AI, what should I do with my life? And they'll tell you, and then you just do it. That's our future.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you had to plug it in, and they would just do some like really low grade if-then statements. If SQL, then these options. If Java, then this.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. That is really interesting. I didn't do that myself. Like I didn't. I kind of accidentally got into data analytics at the beginning, but when I started working alongside a lot of data scientists, a lot of data engineers, I was still really interested in data analytics. I was for a small period of time considering data engineering because I started making friends with a lot of the software, or it's not software engineers, database developers, and a lot of our data engineers and data architects because I was on a data collection team. And I was like, hey, I like this data collection stuff because it was, somewhat new to me. And so I was like, maybe I could do that, but I didn't really commit hard to it. I just kept learning. And, I love the, like you said, I worked on a data science team. So that's like what technically we were. We were a data science team, and my boss's boss was our director of data science. And the data scientists, when I would work with them, I would always be like, but how did you get this number? And they're like, well, we created this machine learning model and here's what the output was. And I was like, but why did you get the number? Well, based off all these factors. I was like, but could you pinpoint why this number is here? Like, could you go back and figure it out? And they're like, well, it's kind of. And so, like you said, I also never really gravitated toward data science because I didn't like there was a level of uncertainty and lack of solidity in my mind, at least. And so I just never really gravitated towards it. And so the data analytics and the data engineering stuff, I've always been super into. And, at my company, at least, the data engineers and the database developers is a lot of the people I worked with. They were really smart. I was like, I want to be smart like them. I was like, you guys really know what you're talking about. I really respect your thought process and methodology behind those things. And so, yeah, it's just really interesting how people get to where they are. I've met so many people, even like you, just who had a different job or whatnot. And they're like, hey, I'm really interested in this kind of stuff. And then you start taking some courses and then you get good at it and you can transition within your either company or, at another company by changing your resume with some new skills.
Yes. Those are often some of the moves. And then, then it's just about doing the interview well and, showing that you can do it. But I do think like one of the things I've noticed is like, you do have to like push for it often is what I've seen with people. It's like if you just wait and hope that something is going to change, it's not. That's you. There is obviously like some like, oh yeah, we fell into it, but like it was more than that, right? Like it's like, well, we didn't fall into it. Like there was
You had some
level
direction.
of like, well, I asked, like I was constantly like bugging my director. I'm like, I really want to try this. Can I try this? Look, I finished all my work. Can I try this?
Yes. Let me tell you something. I 100% agree with you. You have to almost be like a little bit shameless in the fact that no one's going to just come and ask you, hey, Alex, do you want to do a data engineering? And you're like, yeah, I'd love to do that. Most of the time it's you pushing to learn a new skill and then going and like making it known to people who may have influence in that area that you want to do it until they give you a shot. That is like, has 100% been my experience and the experience of a lot of other people I've talked to.
Yeah. I had someone at Facebook who did that where like she would bug me and she'd be like, hey, can you help me like data engineering? Like I want to do data engineering. I'm like, okay, let me look through your pipeline. I don't have time, but let me help you. Like, let me like, people have done this for me. So let me try to like help you figure this out and see if there's things I can do for you to make it easier for this transition. So, yeah.
Well, to even speak on the other side, when I was a manager, one of the people on my team, she was a business analyst, but she wanted to be a BI developer. And I was like, well, we have consultants who kind of do that work. Maybe not right now. But she kept asking me and she's like, oh, well, I actually in my free time built this, which is, really business relevant. I was like, oh, this is really helpful. I was like, you're really serious about doing this BI developer. And so that I was a manager of her for a little over a year. And by the end of it, I got her promoted to a BI developer. I have to go when you're working at a big company, like I was, there's so much red tape.
Yeah.
I had to prove that she had certain certifications, that she had the relevant skills, that she had done certain projects. And then I had to write like formal writing, write up the business proposition of transitioning to be a BI developer, like all these things. It was really tough. It was really annoying. I did not enjoy it. But all that being said, from a manager's perspective, I could tell she was really serious about it and she was skilled and she was progressing in knowledge. And so, all those things combined, I was like, she could do a good job. And so I gave her a chance and now she's a BI developer. And so, that's on the other side of things. But I did the same thing when I was a data analyst. I was like, put me on that project, put me on that team. I really want to do that work. And often if they value you as a person or like they know that you're valuable and they want to keep you, they'll try to get you into those things. If you have a good manager or if you like are close with you have a good relationship.
Yeah. There is always like talking about the luck factor. There is always some aspect of like, do you have a good manager? Do you have a good relationship with them? That's always going to play a role because one bad manager who's like, doesn't want you to leave, right? Like, oh, you do a great job where you're at. I don't want to have to find a new person. No, you don't need to do that.
Exactly. Well, and that's what I was going to say is like the manager piece is actually more important than probably a lot of other factors even. But your self-motivation is probably like 60% of it. And then the 40% is kind of outside of your control. Is like, do you have a good manager or are you within a team or are they willing to give you some opportunities outside of that? And that kind of is, again, just right place, right time. And if it isn't happening, like you've been there for like, been trying to do that for like a year and you're like, I'm not getting anywhere here. Well, then it's hard if you don't already have the experience to transition. So again, it's just like, sometimes you have to get lucky and just kind of hope you have a good, well, not hope, but you can try your best to have a good relationship with your manager and with your team and whatnot and kind of make those things happen. But it does not usually just happen, like we were saying earlier, it doesn't just happen by itself usually. It's a lot of work usually.
A lot of work, a lot of trying to just put yourself out there. But I think last conversation we had, and this is what I think inspired one of your posts, you were talking about how being a manager was maybe not the thing you wanted to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're 100% right. After we got off that call, I literally went into my like notes where I kind of like write ideas down for posts when I have them because I have one on my phone. And I went there and I literally wrote out that whole post. And that was one of my best posts in a while. It did really well. And I think people just really resonate with it because you're told everyone, this is me. This has been me since I've been in tech. Everyone is told, I want to say everyone, the vast majority of people are told that when you get into whatever role, that you work your way up to be a manager.
Yeah.
That's just the career progression you're supposed to have, because then you become a manager, you become a director, senior director, CTO, etc. And I went that path, and I went to the manager, and I progressed my career very quickly. And in hindsight, it was a very big mistake. Like, I really wish I hadn't done that. Like, I really wish I hadn't taken that manager role. In hindsight, of course, it was more money, it was a better title, more career progression in the long run. So when I was making the decision, it makes perfect sense. But now looking back, I'm like, I really wish I hadn't taken that role, simply because I learned and I realized that I like working with people. I don't like managing people. And it's very, very, very different than what my expectations were. It was a lot more paperwork, a lot more interviewing, a lot more budget meetings, high level stuff where I never really got to see code or write code in any way for like a year. So I was only living off of like my side projects at the time, in terms of like fulfilling that. It just grew over the years of like, I need to build something. Like, I need to be writing some SQL. I need to be digging into data. Like, it became like second nature. And I like really was almost like in a withdrawal, and I eventually quit because of it. Because I was like, I need to be building. I need to be digging into something. I need to be doing something that, I couldn't get as a manager. And so I really, really, really missed it. And so I'm glad now I can kind of build and do whatever I want, kind of as a freelancer, consultant, or, whatever I feel like I want to do. I can do that instead of just having to manage all day, which I don't miss it.
Yeah, I think that's the hard thing. Like you said, like, you're told that's the right path. Because again, we have this desire to continue progressing, especially like after college, right? Like, you're like, okay, like whatever, junior, senior. Now I've done analytics. Okay, what's after junior? Okay, mid, senior. Okay, now what's next? At some companies, right, like in a lot of big tech, they try to make it so that like individual contributors have a path to grow and get paid more. So I think that's the other thing, is like, well, I want to make more money. And it's like, well, if the only option is to be manager, I'll try that. But I think, it's like, if you are someone that likes doing, it is going to be something that, it's going to not be that. They often say like you need to try to be technical when you're a manager, but depending on what company you're at, it's really hard because you have all this bureaucracy that, like you said, just to get someone promoted, you have to spend all this time and effort to kind of do that. And then it's like, okay, well, when do I have time to write SQL or do anything? And is it even valuable for me to do that? So
yeah, man, you're giving me flashbacks of giving me bad flashbacks. I'm not enjoying this. It really was like that was a long year. It was a long year. I don't miss it. But like you said, that was the main contributing factor, is I wanted to make more money. Just to be completely transparent, I was the sole income earner in my family, and I got 3 kids, and I was like, I need more money. I don't know what else to tell you. It's expensive. The world is very expensive. And with 3 mouths to feed besides me and my wives, not wives. I hope Christine's not listening to this. I swear it's just you, baby. But it absolutely is like one of the main factors, is like, if you want to progress, if you want to make more money, you got to become a manager. And so in tech, though, I've never worked in big tech, but in a lot of tech, like you said, they usually have roles for individual contributors, whereas it's smaller companies or not as techie companies, they usually do not have that at all. It's literally, it stops at senior, and you can stay in senior and get a 3% bonus, maybe 5% if you're lucky, for the next 10 years. But you can't really progress farther than that as an individual contributor. And so, that's definitely part of the big reason why I was like, I don't think I want to go up to a director and do more of this, and it make it worse.
Because at that point, then you're managing managers, and it's like, how are you guys managing your people? Like, how is that going? Do you need help managing people who are managing projects? It gets very meta. I think, and that's probably maybe one reason. Is that one reason you kind of like being your own boss, because now your income is somewhat not infinite, obviously, but like it's not
It is
capped.
infinite. No, it's infinite.
It's
I'm
the
the next
moon.
Jeff Bezos.
No, it's just like I always found this. I think this was what I found frustrating about more traditional companies is like if you were in tech, it probably capped somewhere around like 150 to 200K, which obviously is a ton of money. But like again, if you've got 3 kids and you're the sole breadwinner, it's hard. Like that's still a hard number to be limited to.
Yeah, I would say when you're first starting out, like when most people who are starting out in analytics don't have a family and aren't 20 years into their career. Most people, they're either out of college or they're early on in their career trying to switch careers because they realize they really like data. And so when I was early on in my career, $63,000 at a small healthcare analytics company, that is amazing.
It's great.
Yeah, but you're also W2, and W2, like if you want to get into the weeds, I didn't know this at the time, but looking back, W2 gets taxed higher than that's the highest tax type that you're going to be on your taxes. I don't know if I said that right, but W2 is taxed really heavily from the government. Whereas now I have an S corp and I'm an employee of my company, and so I get a lot of write-offs for that, and then I have multiple LLCs underneath it for Analyst Builder, for YouTube, and for my consulting. So I have 3 separate LLCs, and so I get taxed at a much lower rate because of just how the government works and how they tax companies and how they tax people, which I didn't understand that until I started my own business. But yeah, one of the things that I really like about kind of starting my own thing and consulting specifically, because if you take everything else out of it, just looking at my consulting piece, then I still make more money than I did when I was a manager. That alone, when you can kind of pick and choose what you want to do, when you want to do it, you have a lot more flexibility. And like you said, if I want to take on more projects and make more money this month, I can. Whereas you can't do that in a W-2 or a full-time 9-to-5 job. No company is going to be like, hey, Alex, if you pick up this extra project, then we'll pay you more money. No, you're going to pick up that extra project because they told you to. And so it is really capped. It's you get the paycheck that hits the 15th and the 30th of every month. But as a freelancer or consultant, you can pick and choose, and you get to set your own rates, and it's very freeing. And so now there's been many people who I've known for the past 5-6 years who I used to mentor back in the day, who have now quit their jobs and are starting to do consulting and freelancing because they also, have started to be able to do that. And they're not content influencers in any way. They're just regular people who, realize that, they were limited in how much they're going to make in their full-time job and are now doing contracting. And some of that is because, I've stayed pretty close in touch with them over the years, and I give them advice. And so now I know many people who are starting to make more money just from consulting or doing freelancing in their niche. Like a lot of them have really specific niches that they're really good at. Like one of my friends, he does data analytics in with law offices. So for like law firms, which have no knowledge. I don't know that data or that industry at all, but he used to be a paralegal. And then he became a data analyst and at a small company, and now he does consulting for data companies, for law firms with their data. And I thought that was super great. And so his niche, he makes a lot of money from, because lawyers, law offices tend to have a lot of money. And so I was, that's like the career progression does not have to be, junior data analyst, senior data analyst, analytics manager, or whatever it is. There's also other options in terms of you can become, more of a tech lead or analytics lead. So lead analyst, you can, there are roles within a lot of companies where you can be quote unquote a manager, but as an individual contributor now. So you have a manager title, but you still contribute individually, which is really interesting. I hadn't heard of that before too long ago.
Sounds a little bit like a workaround. Like, well,
it's a workaround. It's a
so
career progression in title, and maybe in the responsibilities as well. But you'll make more money because you have a manager title, but you don't have to actually manage. And then you can, of course, always do consulting and freelancing on the side. And I recommend people doing that if they're interested in it, just because you can earn extra money on the side and potentially get out of the rat race of 9 to 5 and work even harder on your own business. Wait, I don't want to, pull back the curtain so people can see that. I shouldn't have said that. Has that been your experience? Do you think you work harder as a consultant, or did you work harder when you were in big tech?
I think had I stayed in big tech and like pushed for more promotions, like which like if you're a driven person, I think that's kind of what often happens. I probably would have worked about as hard in both, right? Because it's hard. Like what most people say, I think for big tech is like you kind of become senior and then you coast, right? Like it's not that you can coast; it's just like you kind of know what you need to deliver, you kind of know how to deliver it, and then you don't need to go too much beyond that. But whenever you see these like crazy salaries, like a 7-figure salary, it's like, well, that you need to be an IC like 7, which is like 2 levels above a senior, and that takes a lot of effort. And like they often say, like just getting the promotion's often the hardest part because you have to like prove that you're this level, versus once you've got it, now you just have to like maintain that level or not really at least go below it. So I imagine I would have tried to do that, and so there's always I probably would have, but could I have maybe found a way to like work a system? Probably. I'm sure there's always a way, like people figure out ways to just rest, invest. But it's hard not to want to work harder when it's your own thing, because it's like, but it's my thing, right? You're more motivated to do that because to some degree there's like value just in Seattle Data Guy as a brand. So like I know that like there's probably even ways I could, if I keep making it bigger and more well known, that there could be value in other ways that have nothing to do with my hourly rate. And so, I mean, like, I think I work harder, but I think it's also because it's my company and it's my choice.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. When you have some like skin in the game, or it's like you said earlier, it's kind of uncapped. So the harder you work, the more you get paid. It's pretty motivating to work pretty hard. And I found that to be true for myself. I work a lot harder now that I have mostly my own things that I do. When I was working for someone else, I worked hard. There's no doubt about it, but I definitely didn't like work when I didn't have to work. Like when I was at home, I never even thought about work. I was just focused on my family and whatnot. But now I'm like, okay, once the kids go to bed, I'm going to keep working, because the more I work, the better it is for my family. And so, it's pretty interesting. Just everybody's different path and how people. As I've met so many people from different paths who have gone all the way up. Like I know a lot of just talking about a different career path. I know a lot of people in the data world who have quit their job as a data engineer, data analyst, data scientist, and then started their own company. So like they create some type of software. They have an idea for a new process to do tickets, or a competitor like something like Jira, or an ETL tool.
We lost Alex.
Or whatever it is for their niche. Because if they get that product in front of the right companies, they can make a lot of money. And so that's a whole nother career path that you can do. And so, there's just so many different options out there. It's hard to, if someone was to ask me like what to do now versus what 3 or even 4 years ago, I would have totally different answers, because now I see a lot bigger spectrum of what the possibilities are. Whereas many years ago, I would have just said, become a manager. Now I don't. I usually am like, you can, but make sure that's like really what you want to do. Like you really like what a manager does, because you're no longer like working hands-on typically. So that kind of segues, I guess, into another topic, which is just data analytics and engineering, kind of the differences between. We talked a little bit about some career progression, a little bit about cap on money, but if you were to distill it, I mean, data analytics and engineering are pretty different, and you've done both. So what would you say is the biggest differences between the two?
Yeah, I think generally the way I think about it is, one, they have very different goals, right? Like a data analyst goal is to kind of build, whether it's a dashboard analysis, some sort of like end piece of data insight or product that's going to be served often to either management or needs to be used for a presentation or something of that nature. So it like goes somewhere very clear, and it has like usually an endpoint. Data engineering work to me and the goals tend to be that like you're trying to build this robust system of like both those pipelines, but then also a robust like data set that can be used for multiple of those endpoints, right? Like you're like, I just want to build, this kind of core data layer that anyone can come to and kind of work with. And it's reliable. If things change, we can easily change it, things of that nature. So I think it kind of splits the two in terms of what they do. And it often is why sometimes we can be a little bit, not at odds, but like we just operate differently. So like sometimes people are like, oh, let's have the analysts kind of do data pipelines and do data engineering work. And then you'll have that happen. And then what usually ends up happening is you have like now 1,000 data pipelines that all do one very specific task. Whereas generally a data engineer will be like, well, how can I make one pipeline to hopefully serve those thousands of tasks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now be honest with me, man. Did you get into data engineering for the money?
No, I mean, I don't, I think again, like I was thinking data science, and then initially, I think trying to work for big tech was definitely a combination of like money plus prestige, plus like you're thinking that you're going to work on hard problems, which sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. Like you can vary, like fun fact, like big tech, like anywhere else, like you're going to have some people that work on really, really hard problems, but probably 80% of people are working on just standard problems. And if anything, it's sometimes easier because the data infrastructure is so mature. I had to do a lot more stuff to put out pipelines when I worked at a healthcare analytics startup compared to Facebook, where I was like, all I got to do is write some basically Python script and put it somewhere and it runs and has everything around it and logging on all this stuff. I don't have to write all that. Okay. Well, that's easier. But I think my first job I was making probably close to what you were, about like 55K. And I knew like all my friends were making like 100 to 120. So that was like one motivation factor. I was like, I'm making half
right.
what all my friends are. Like this is not a great situation to be in.
You're going out to the bar, they're picking up your tab. You feel embarrassed.
Yeah. So I think that was more about focusing on like just changing companies. It was not about the role. It was like, well, I know I need to be at a different company because there was like the first company was like a hospital. The next one was healthcare analytics, and then eventually big tech. But every time, your paycheck grows, and life is long, so it was fine.
In 20 years, you'll be like some hybrid role that we've never even heard of yet. You'll be like, oh yeah, I do consulting on, the matrix analysis, matrix engineering or something. It'll be something we've never heard of that's like popular in 20 years. It's kind of like you said. I agree that you just kind of go with the flow a little bit. You kind of see where it takes you. That is something that people always comment on, though, is the salary differences. And I think the salary differences are fairly justified. I think I think the engineering work and building pipelines is more complicated, and you can get more wrong with it, or do more things wrong, is how I'll say it. Because pipelines are going to fail all the time, and someone needs to be able to know how to use them, fix them, build them. Whereas data analysis work, you can get it wrong and it can really mess up some stuff, but the data is still there. You can go back and you can fix it, and it's not as complicated to go back and get right, in my opinion. And so it's the pay discrepancy is usually quite large. I think for when I was working as a data analyst at my bigger company, it was a healthcare company. I was making, I think, about 90,000 as kind of a mid-level data analyst with a 10% bonus. So let's say 100,000 flat. I know for a fact that the database developers and data engineers that I was working at were making about 180 to about 220 in that range. So a little over double. And so definitely looking at that, you can see your mind starts going, you're like, wait a second, if I learn those skills and I start doing what they're doing, I can make more money. So that definitely is a contributing factor for a lot of people wanting to transition into, even data science, data architecture, data engineering, database development, all those data adjacent things. And so, I mean, I think it's a very fair reason to want to go into that. I don't really, I don't look down on anybody who would want to do better for themselves financially.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like you've got kids. I think that's always the hard thing to separate. Like I think some people there's some level of gatekeeping like, occasionally where people are like, well, you need all these skills, but it's like it is hard not to want to do those things when it's like I could change my life essentially, right? Like working for Facebook financially changed my life, right? Like it puts me in a very different situation. I'd have to have worked like 10 more years extra to get that place, right? So it's one of those things where it's hard not to be like, well, yeah, there's a reason why it's helpful. And money always plays a factor. But I mean, that's a little bit of the world that other people have kind of created around us. So
what do you think is easier to get into, data engineering or data analytics? Like landing your first job. What is it, is the data analytics market worse, better, harder, easier? What would you say?
Generally, I just know so many people that have gone from data analytics to data engineering that I will usually say that, getting data analytics is easier first, even if you're eventually planning to go to data eng, and even if you have some of the skills initially to go to data eng, because there's just so many skills that are expected of a lot of data engineers. And it's so broad that it's hard to build all those skills just from school or just from like a job for a year. But data, like working as a data analyst, you're often somewhat adjacent. And so you can either talk to data engineers, you can kind of work on some of the stuff that they're doing. Maybe you can ask to work on a pipeline and get accustomed to it.
Yeah.
So I think generally getting into data analytics is easier initially. And then it kind of can be a good like place to move laterally into a data engineering position. Because again, you have to learn both all this like programming and data skills, but also some like more system admin skills and cloud skills. And it's just so weirdly broad and sometimes non-specific. So
yeah, that is a very fair point. I also know a lot more people. It's interesting. Just kind of to say contradictory to what I just said, it is interesting now that I have, my YouTube channel and Analyst Builder and stuff like that, how many people are messaging me the opposite. They're like, hey, I'm a software engineer, or I'm a software developer, or I'm in web dev and I want to get into data analytics because I don't really like the work I do. And so I'm starting to, I get to see the opposite side of that too. But I will agree for sure that I definitely think that the barrier of entry for data analytics is a little bit lower. And for a lot of data analyst roles, like even look at small companies, like iBro, when I got into it, it was pretty simple. It was just they needed SQL and Excel. And so that's not extremely difficult. But even for data engineering at a small company, you're going to need to know quite a few things. Even if it's just SQL, you need to know SSIS or SSRS or, different tools within that can be more complicated if you're just starting out and you don't know anything yet. And so, like I say, I think the barrier of entry is a lot lower, and there's a lot more jobs out there that kind of cater towards data analytics because people work with so much data at so many companies. But there's a lot of CRM tools out there, like tools where you don't necessarily need a full data engineer. But the end data may have more use cases where you'll need a data analyst. And so there are going to be probably more opportunities just in general about that kind of work needed. But yeah, the job market's been, don't get me started on the job market, man. Actually, you know what? We're going into the job market. What do you think about the current job? Actually, should I start to soften the blow when you speak, or should I let you be the bad guy?
I mean, I'm happy to at least give some because it is interesting, right? Like they just whatever what's the word I'm looking for here, where they corrected their numbers by nearly a million.
The U.S. Labor of Statistics, I believe.
Yeah, well, yeah, BLS, yes. But they just corrected their numbers by nearly 1 million. And it's funny because for the whole last year, I've been hearing job market's great, job market's great, job market's great. And then I think I had at least half a dozen, if not more, friends, and these are not in tech, get laid off. And I'm just like, okay, if this proportion of my friends, right, like a random sample of friends have been laid off, right, of just someone that people know, it just doesn't feel right. Someone used the quote, I guess it's from Jeff Bezos, that if the data and the anecdotes don't line up,
The
anecdotes are probably right. And so to me, I'm just like, I don't know, guys. I'm pretty sure the job market is not as good as we're saying. Because again, like if you take my random sample of people, like it's weird to have that many people get laid off, all in a very short period of time. Just felt really, really weird. So it's been a very weird job market, especially I think after that like big boost in 2020 and 2021 when it just felt like everyone was hiring. You would get interviews just for having 2 years of experience somewhere. Big tech would like interview you. I was doing like 3-4 interviews a week when I was at Facebook, because we have a process, so like you got to do a lot. But yeah, it was just going. But now it just feels like we've hit a wall in a weird way.
Yeah, I absolutely think that is a correct observation. I think there is some incentive, for them to say the job market's good. I just say they as in like just people in general. It's there's an incentive there. And so the job market has been a lot more tough. About a year ago, when the job market had just kind of started going down, I was like, I was like, I think that this is going to be somewhat temporary. I was hoping near the end of 2024 that we would see a little bit more of the light. I was expecting interest rates to go down sooner, and they haven't. They've stayed higher a lot longer, which don't get me started on that. But I had expected there to be more push in the job market because I think a lot of people had seen it over a year ago kind of start to, slow down in hiring a little bit. But now where we are, there hasn't been a lot of progress in terms of the job market. And so I don't know. Knowing what I know now, I don't know when it's going to get a lot better. I think it depends on, how the government handles, this inflation that's been really impacting a lot of businesses, because that's stopped a lot of people from hiring, is the higher prices of costs, goods, employees, etc. And so I think that'll impact it a lot, but also there just needs to be more demand for the jobs. And right now the demand is low because, people are starting to pinch their pennies because, things are getting more expensive, like me and you. If things are more expensive for me and you, we're probably not going to go out and hire another person on our team. I'm not going to hire a contractor to work with me because it's going to be expensive. And I maybe want to save that money. And that's what most companies out there are doing. They're trying to cut back. They're trying to make sure that their shareholders are making money. And so they're cutting back on the most expensive thing in, the industry, which is labor. And so, it's been a really tough job market, in my opinion. And I have, maybe even just this week, I've had a lot of people reach out and say they landed jobs, but at the same time, not as many as like even a year ago.
Yeah.
Like, the number is probably 60% as many people, because I usually get at least like a couple a week.
Yeah.
And now it's like maybe 2 or 3 a week. Whereas before it was about double. And so, it's a really tough market. But what I've been telling everybody, if anyone's watching is curious what my advice is my biggest piece of advice, and this is not just my advice, this is a lot of other people who I've talked to in the industry, is try to go local. That has been my biggest piece of advice that has been really successful with especially people near larger cities. So I know a lot of people in the Dallas area and like in Texas area who they're like, hey, I live near the city. I've been applying to all these remote jobs. I'm getting nowhere with remote jobs. Remote jobs are getting 4,000, 5,000 applications. If you're not one of the first people in the first 5 minutes of a job being posted, you basically aren't, there's just too many. So people are starting to go really local. Like they're looking at their only local jobs and they're having so much more success because those local jobs are still hiring, but they want someone who's either hybrid or on site, because that's how believe it or not, that's how a lot of businesses operate. They want people local. They want people who understand the business that's local to them. And so a lot of people have been having success with that. I've had very few people who have been recently telling me that they've been getting jobs remote, just because of how competitive it is right now with layoffs and, the markets right now. It's tough to get those remote jobs.
Yeah. I actually had a few people reach out to me because they're getting 4,000 jobs or 4,000 applicants for a job, they're like, can you send us some referrals? Because we don't want to deal with the 4,000 applicants we just got. It's like, we don't even know what to do with it. Because right, like you're tacking on like ChatGPT and what you can do with that, right? Like, oh yeah, just write my resume and automatically apply to any remote job. Plus just the fact that now the market's bigger and like, yeah, remote's more of a thing.
Yeah.
It's not to say that they're impossible to get, but like if you don't have a referral, it's like now it's almost like you just have to have a referral, and even then there's probably like 10 referrals coming in that they're getting, and then you can get picked and filtered through those instead. So yeah, it's it's interesting is always the thing.
That's actually real. So I hadn't thought of that. So something that I just noticed recently, this was about the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, is I've had more people messaging me saying, "Hey Alex, do you have anyone you can recommend for this job?" Which I do that all the time. People who I've gotten to know through, Discord or on YouTube or through LinkedIn. If I see their skills, their project, I communicate with them a lot. And I talk to so many people. I will recommend them for these jobs. It's been really picking up, and maybe that's the reason why. Because literally just yesterday, I had someone message me who I've been chatting with for a while, and she said, "Hey, we're hiring for an analytics manager role. Do you have anybody that you would know?" I was like, "Oh, I actually do." I was like, somebody who has 5 years experience as an analyst. I'd known them for 5 years. I was like, "Let me, send you, their profile." And I didn't even think maybe that is the reason why, is just because they want some more. They don't want to filter through 4,000 resumes. They just want someone who they trust, which I guess is me, to recommend someone who I trust as a referral. And so I've been doing that just with people who, I've gotten to know over the years. And it's kind of mind blowing that you're saying that, because now that makes a lot more sense, because it's been a lot more than normal. Like in the past month, it's probably been like 15 people or so who've reached out and said, "Hey, do you have a referral, or do you know someone who'd be good fit for this specific position?" And I have referred someone every time. But I never thought that, I didn't make that connection between so many applicants and needing to ask someone who you trust for a job, and getting that referral. That's interesting. I just am really, I haven't put that together.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious if, and this is something I feel like in general with things like, again, with ChatGPT and just all this ability to like mass email if you're like a salesperson. I feel like the relationships like side of things will just be more important, because it's like we're gonna be so sick and tired of like clearly automated messaging, and where we can't discern it. Like it's just too much, and we're like humans, we're gonna overload. We're just gonna be like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to what I can handle, which is like the relationships that I have, and that level of trust, which would be kind of interesting. It's almost like going back to when you just knew the two shoemakers in your county, and one of them people like, and the other one they don't, and so that's the one that you go to.
I cannot agree more. Actually, in fact, I've seen that in other areas of my life recently. Is we're starting to get to know people at my kid's school, or if my son is, doing different sports, or we meet people in the neighborhood who know people, and I trust their referral more than I will the internet, because I'm like, I can't trust that those reviews are real. I can't trust that whatever service is real. So we'll, have people who we know, or, let's say it's even my parents. I'll trust my parents' review over an internet review any day. And so, for the job, the other day I was on X, or Twitter, if you want to call it that, the other day, and someone was posting, and it got like 100,000 likes or something, about this guy who created a GitHub repo where you can use it, because he open sourced it, and he basically created a system where AI goes through all the open jobs and applies to every single one, sends a custom message, like it's like mass messaging system on steroids. And he landed like 10 interviews the first day he used it. And so people were going nuts over it. And so that's the kind of thing, like if more people are going to start using this, more products are going to be created like that. And it's just going to be it's going to be so much mass applicants that you don't know who to trust. And so, like you said, you go back to your roots. You go back to, what can I trust? If I can't trust the internet, which you shouldn't blindly trust the internet ever. If I can't trust the internet, who do I trust? It's my neighbor. It's the person who has firsthand experience, who I actually personally know, or I've gotten to know online at least. Those are the people that you're gonna go to, and you're gonna believe and and kind of value their opinion more highly than, just a random resume. Because anybody can create a resume and fake it and get an interview. It doesn't mean they're going to be good at the job or get the job, but it does mean that they can potentially get an interview, and that's hard to compete against when they're at that scale,
Yeah. Yeah.
At least they're most likely applying to all remote jobs, I would imagine, across like all of LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor. But like I was saying earlier, that's why I think local jobs are that much more of an opportunity to kind of stand out and be local and be a human and be in person. People really are seemingly valuing that, and companies are requiring a lot of people to come back into the office anyways. So.
They keep trying. It's a hard struggle, but like you said, some companies just start that way. But some people I know like don't want to do that, and I kind of get it to some degree, but I'm just like yeah. We both already talked. We can't really say too much. We both complained about driving in our stuff in traffic. It was like, yeah, we did say it sucks, I guess, earlier, and it does.
It does suck. It does. But when you're first breaking in, like, hey, you got to do what you got to do. I'm a firm believer that you just have to suck it up for the first like couple years. A lot of people and there have been a lot of people online over the years who always are like, you can get $100,000 remote job. You can sit in your PJs and relax if you learn XYZ. The realistic expectation should not be that.
Yeah.
It should be that you're going to, you're going to have to kind of grind it out for a little while, get some experience, become knowledgeable in an area, and then maybe you can do that. It's not unheard of once you get some experience and you actually really know what you're doing. Big shout out to Matthew Alderman really quick because he's my mod. He comes to all the live streams, and he gives me $5 for my 5 for 5 at Wendy's every live stream. And so just big shout out to him. Really appreciate it.
You got a big thing for Wendy's. That's the second time. You should get like a.
So I have a heart. The reason I like Wendy's so much is when I was very poor, I was right out in Dallas. It was a non-paid. Let me see. That's my wife. That's not my wife, so I don't care. When I was out in Dallas, I had no money. It was an unpaid internship. That was my splurge. My splurge was a 4. It was at the time a 4 for 4, and now it's a 5 for 5. It's a $5 biggie bag if you want to be specific. All right. But it was a $4 meal. And I used to get that all the time, maybe like 2 or 3 times a week as like a splurge because that's all I could really afford. Other than that, I was just eating eggs, mandarin oranges, granola bars, maybe apples. That was my whole diet, and water.
Oh my gosh.
That was my diet.
Why not rice? I'm just curious if we're talking about cutting.
Yeah, I had rice never really sat well with me with my stomach. I think I maybe just was not eating a good kind of rice, maybe because I can eat rice fine now and it doesn't bother me. So maybe I was eating really bad quality rice. I was like my total budget, like everything, my entire life cost me $1,000 a month.
Wow,
that included food, insurance, groceries, rent, everything. It was under $1,000 a month. I would give my left kidney to go back and only have to spend $1,000 a month. My family is very expensive.
Yes,
a lot more expensive than that. But the Wendy's was always like a big treat for me. And I still, even to this day, it's kind of a tradition now for my family. We'll go out to the beach here near Charleston, and on the way home, we get Wendy's. And we only go, during the summer, and it's only maybe once a week. And so that's like our splurge, and the kids love it. And it's just it's become like a family tradition. And I don't know. Wendy's has a special place in my heart, even though the quality is, it's not good for you.
I mean, like, I think we all have something like that where it's like, I love that it's like connected to something deeper, right? Like we've all had, well, I can't say we've all had moments of some level of struggle, but I think it's the thing that, I don't know, makes us human.
Yep. Food connects us. Wendy's connects us across the world.
Food definitely. I think so. I mean, that's where I started thinking when I was like 16. I'm like, I'm gonna work in fine dining. I remember my career counselor, whatever high school counselor, was like, "Are you dumb?" Like, because good grades, and they're like, why are you going that direction? You could go. I was like, I don't care about the money. Lo and behold, after working like 5 years in fine dining, and my paycheck, I think, going from like maybe I was really lucky, and I got $10 an hour in my first job, which back in 2008 or whenever I started working was great.
Absolutely.
And then I think I eventually got to maybe $12 or $14 an hour after 5 years, and I was just like, that math is just not mathing. Again, as a kid, it was great. It's a lot of money, but once you start being like, I want a family someday, like I want to do all this other stuff, you're like, I can't do any of that stuff. So yeah.
That puts that puts a fear in you when you start thinking about your future. You're like, wait a second, I don't want to. I have bigger aspirations than just myself in the future. That'll motivate a lot of people.
Yes, that was your recent post. If you want to get motivated, just have 3 kids. That's a sudden motivation.
So apparently that was very controversial.
Oh.
People in the comments, you should go back and look at the comments. Everyone should. Everyone go and like that post. People took a big offense to that. They're like, Alex, that's really insensitive because what if someone can't have kids?
Oh,
I'm like, okay, that's fair. I felt, you know what? That's fair. But listen, it's not for you then. Okay. This post isn't for you. They're like, Alex, well, what if people just don't want to have kids? We just want to not. I was like, don't. I'm like, guys, this post isn't for you.
Yeah.
I was like, so a lot of people were taking offense to it. And it was a joke.
I was gonna say, I imagine it was mostly a joke where it was kind of just like, look,
yeah,
it's really hard to have 3 kids. Like
having 3 kids is tougher than any job I've ever had.
Yeah.
So it was, of course, a joke. I was like, if you want to be motivated, have 3 kids. Well, you have to when you have 3 kids because you have mouths to feed. It was a joke, and so people took offense to it. Believe it or not.
Yeah,
that was my Donald Trump impersonation. Believe it or not. Can you believe it? I'm not good at impersonations.
I would say you're not. That's not your forte.
No, I'm really bad at it. Actually, my wife laughs because I do it so bad. Some people, they laugh because your impression's really good. Mine's so bad that's why people laugh.
Yes. Well, so it's okay. I didn't recognize it until you told me. Yeah. No, no. But yeah, I think that's always a hard part. I think about the internet. It's like you don't always know. Like, and you do feel for that because it's having kids is it's becoming harder. It feels like so. No, in all methods, like both cost wise and everything. It's like,
yeah. Well, when the global economy crashes, everything will be affordable again. You'll buy a house for a nickel.
That's always like an interesting thought, right? Because it's like, do you want the global economy to crash to some degree? I mean, depends as long as it comes back, I guess. But I don't know. What does that mean?
That's our next live stream. Do we want the global economy to crash?
It would be nice for house prices to be more reasonable. I think that's true. I don't think PE firms should be allowed to buy, houses that should go to people. They can buy apartments, fine. Buy apartment complexes. Leave homes for people who, or just families. But
it's a lot of people say the same thing about like owning an Airbnb. There's been a lot of, especially in certain local communities where they're like, they're starting to outlaw in even certain, I believe there's been discussion in, was it New York? All of New York was considering banning. I believe in part of New York, they banned Airbnbs, but they've considered doing it at the state level, banning all Airbnbs, which I don't own an Airbnb, so it wouldn't hurt me. So I say go for it. But there's like, that's a whole different topic, and I know we're running over now, but the just affordability for anybody at almost all levels is really tough. Even for our family, me and my wife are budgeting now more than almost as much as when we first got married, because things were more expensive. It's just how the world is right now. So we'll see what happens. I think in the next 5 years, it'll be very interesting to see, looking back, like let's say at 2030, looking back to see what happens in the next 5 years, because you see where houses go, see where the economy goes, where the job market goes. But if there's one thing I know is, try to have as much control as you can of what you can control. Put in the effort, apply local, learn data engineering and data analytics from our YouTube channels, and you'll be good to go.
and buy Wendy's.
And buy some Wendy's. Treat yourself. It's my advice for this Tuesday. Treat yourself with some Wendy's, a nice $5 biggie bag.
I look forward to that LinkedIn post. I used to treat myself.
I'll write it.
I used to treat myself to $5 Wendy's. I saw a dog outside the Wendy's, and I gave him my $5. I went to the interview that I had to go. What?
I said, you think I won't, but I'll write it.
The other funny thing for anyone listening to this, the few chats we have had, Alex will multiple times in that chat be like, "Oh, I'm going to write that down. That's a LinkedIn post."
I almost always do, don't I?
Yeah. You've got like 3 of he'll have 1 hour chat and have like 3 or 4 posts that come from it. It's very, very.
That's true. Oh, I've already had multiple in my head. I just haven't written them down yet from this. Genuinely, because now part of my process is waking up, emails, and going on social media, doing my one post for the day. I now, every time I hear something, I'm like, my audience would like that. I should write that down. And so I do, and then I post about it. And so on my phone, maybe I should. Let me show it. Just for the last thing before we go. I'm going to show. This is my page. It's going to be okay. So this is titled. Oh, you can't read it. It's backward. It's titled LinkedIn posts. But I'm going to start scrolling. These are all posts. Wait, just let it go. Let it go.
Yeah, I see the little scroll bar there on the side. Yeah.
Just keep it going. It's not even like these are ones that I haven't posted yet. I have hundreds. Wow. There has to be like 150, 200 in here. Because I just, now that's how my mind is wired, because I've been doing this for like 5 years. I just am always, it's like second nature, that could be a good LinkedIn post. I hate to be that guy, but it could.
That's Alex's brain currently has like 30% LinkedIn, 30% analyst builder, 10% family. No kidding.
Yeah. Sure no, family's like 2%. Everything else is social media and money.
Oh man.
All right. Well, hey, listen. I appreciate you joining the live stream. I think the next time we'll do it on yours. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. So next time we'll do it on yours. This software, StreamYard, had the ability to do it to LinkedIn, but they asked me to pay, and I said no. But maybe if this thing goes somewhere, we're like, all right, we're gonna keep doing this, I might pay for StreamYard.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I'm using it, and so I wasn't gonna pay for it. But
yeah, I am paying for it, so I can't do both.
What the heck? You're telling me this now? This is at the end of our live stream.
Well, I think then I'd have to connect to your YouTube channel somehow. So
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about. I don't know if I trust you that much. I mean,
that's fair. That's exactly I suddenly guys, I'm taking over Alex's chat. Just doing a live stream.
Yeah. You're gonna start posting videos too about why your channel is the best and everyone needs to follow you. And
exactly.
That could have totally been a really funny bit.
Yes. Sorry, I ruined it. Ruined the bit. Or this is just gonna be a really deep cut. We'll do it one day and only 130 people who are watching this right now, or maybe the few thousand that watch in the future will get it if they watch this deep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you joining. Thanks everybody for joining. I know we didn't interact with the chat too much, except for Matthew. Because I always just appreciate him. And I didn't even like that. I didn't even heart that post. I should have hearted it. But thank you guys for joining. Really appreciate it. This is just a chat. If you guys have ideas for future chats, we are more than open to it. So send us a message on LinkedIn, X, LinkedIn. Where else would they email?
In the comments below.
In the comments. Yeah, post comments of topics you'd be interested in, and maybe we'll get some together, and that'll just be how we do live stream. Maybe keep it easy. We won't plan anything either. We'll just choose a topic. We'll start the live stream, and then we'll just be like, hey, what do we think about this? I think that's a great, there's no prep involved at all.
I'm always for that, right? Anytime, Alex, when you asked me to do, for the other thing you've asked is oh gosh, I got to do so much prep for that. This is oh yeah, I can do an hour talking. Easy. Awesome. Thank you again.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I'll be doing, what last thing, you're doing you are doing a free conference. I'm going to call it, it's called a conference, right?
Yeah.
I knew there could be other. So just plug that real quick, because I'll be part of that as well. and so people know about it.
Yeah. I'm doing a live conference. It'll be virtual. We're calling it Data Engineering and Machine Learning Summit. It's the second time we're doing it. We've got, I think, like 30 plus speakers, including Alex. And yeah, we're gonna be talking about data engineering, machine learning. There's gonna be multiple tracks. One of the speakers is gonna be like, I want to say the director of some analytics or senior director of like the New York Times. So I'm excited for that. Because I'm like, oh, they probably do some fun analytics over there. And so it's a lot of cool speakers. I'm really trying to find people that don't always speak that often. So I'm like trying to get like real doers of the industry. So you can find that.
I'm not a doer.
Well, you were at some point.
I used to be. I'm a little washed up, but it might be interesting what I say.
So yeah, I've got a few posts on it, and I'll post on it again. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see it. So awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, send me the link, and I'll put that in the description so people can find that.
I will do that.
All right, we're out of here.
Awesome.
Take it easy, everybody.
Thanks all.